Hey everybody, this is our last big lesson, 40 bivariate data. So let's talk about that real quick. First off, when it says bivariate, that means that we're talking about bi, which is two, and then the variable means variable. So two variables instead of just one like we had seen before in a lot of the stuff we had done. All right, so just quick little notes, just trying to get the basics here. Bivariate data is data that summarizes two variables. The variables are hopefully related to each other in some way. Um, to do that, we'll use a two-way frequency table. That's just a table that summarizes the distribution of the categorical data. Okay, so that's a big point. What does it mean for categorical data? All right, that's just putting them into categories. You can see we have a table down here, right? And we've got, freshmen and sophomores right over here. We're talking about freshmen and sophomores. And we're talking about the types of classes. They have math, science, and English, okay? And they were asked what is their favorite subject. So that's what we talk about when we say a frequency table. Big words, but that, it's just a table that's giving us what the data are. Within this, you'll be able to see things like a segmented bar graph. You'll be able to see things like figuring out like the percentages of the data. And that's really what we're looking for here. We're going to come up with some proportions and things like that. So anyway, let's just go ahead through and try to read this table, because if you can read the table, you can probably create anything that you need to. So, all right, the first question, how many freshmen were surveyed? So we look at the freshmen, which is our first row, and the total number is already given to us. Sometimes we have to figure that out on ourselves. That would just be the 15 plus the 12 plus the 11. But there's 38 freshmen that were surveyed here. And again, there were, if we read this, there were a total of 79 freshmen and sophomores surveyed, and they were asked what subject is their favorite. Okay, how many students picked science as their favorite subject? Now be careful here. They're saying how many students. They don't say how many freshmen or how many sophomores. It's students in general. So again, we're looking at the column total down here, which is 23. What percent of sophomores surveyed picked English as their favorite? So now we have two things. We have sophomores and English, and it says what percent of sophomores, okay? So when it says percent of sophomores that picked English, well, we got to start by only looking at the second row here, right? We're just looking at that row, the second row, all right? And so when we do that, there were 17 out of the 41. Okay, so I'm going to write 17 over 41. Now the question is, how do we turn that into a percent? Well, just divide it, and you'll use a calculator most likely for that. And changing that to a percent, it ends up being about 41.5%. Make sure that you round that. And I think one decimal place is probably okay. What percent of students that picked English were freshmen? Okay, so now that we're talking about students that picked English, we're talking about this column right here, right? We're talking about these guys, this whole group. So what percent of English picked, the students that picked English were freshmen. So that's going to be 11 students were freshmen that picked English out of a 28. So again, we have to take that fraction, turn it into a percentage, and we're going to call that 39.3%. What percent of freshmen picked math? Now we flipped it around. This time we want the percent of freshmen that picked math. So we're looking at this top row right there, okay? Freshmen that picked math. So we have 15 freshmen that picked math out of a total of 38. So just grab your calculator. 15 divided by 38 is going to give us about 39.5%. There are 500 freshmen in the school. Use the data to predict the number of freshmen that would say math is their favorite subject. All right, so this is what we can do. I like to set these up as a proportion. Sorry about that. I like to say 15 out of 38 equals X out of 500. That's the way I think about it in my brain. We also know another way, since we have the percent already, the 39.5%, we could just multiply that by 500. See, when I look at this, this is a division problem, so I want to get rid of the 500, so I multiply by 500 on both sides. and that's going to give me X, which stands for the number of freshmen, and we just have to take that number and multiply it by 500, and then we get a decimal, so then we have to choose. It's going to be somewhere between 197 or 198 freshmen. All right, 197 or 198 freshmen would pick math. All right. Now, there's going to be some problems where you have to be able to take a data table and do things, display the information and different things like bar graphs, histograms, things like that. But we'll work on that in class if we need to. So that's it. Pretty quick lesson. Hope that makes sense. Understand a little bit of what they mean when they say bivariate data, just two variables. A lot of times we summarize them into tables. Just need to know what we're talking about and how the wording lets us know which ones. So good luck. Make sure you try the homework assignments, and we will see you in class.